Well, thank you. I'm going to ask now the Assemblymember Russell to move the amendment put forward by the City Hall Greens.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone, and I'm grateful for the lunch break. For 2023, the City Hall Greens amendment to the Mayor's budget is about filling the gaps in provision for Londoners who are left behind and overlooked. Our goal is an economic recovery that is inclusive for all Londoners. A lot has changed in the national conversation since the last budget. The rising cost of living has pushed millions of workers to the brink of poverty. After a decade of pay squeeze, inflation is running at over 11%, and even the basics are increasingly unaffordable for many people in our city. There's a national effort needed to address this, and Greens will not stop urging the government to finally step up. But the purpose of this amendment is to set out clearly how the Mayor can, and absolutely must, play his part. Now, despite the difficulties of the last few years, Londoners are resilient. We've made it through some of the toughest times imaginable. But unfortunately, there are still missing safety nets against the escalating cost of living and very worrying problems with policing in our city. The Mayor can begin to address these gaps through the levers we've identified in our amendment, and it is clear that Londoners urgently need this support. Our amendment makes careful use of GLA Group reserves, which have nearly trebled since 2017. In total, the amendment proposes additional expenditure of £54 million. That's less than 3% of the overall reserves and just 0.3% of the draft budget before us. What we get for that is a range of investments that protect the economic security of Londoners, increase the spending power of the lowest paid Londoners and support our high street. In short, it's a bargain. My colleague Sian Berry will cover our proposals for new funds to bring dead spaces back to life, a resident empowerment fund and a targeted safety net against homelessness. And I'm now going to set out our proposals with support for nurses and lower paid Londoners with travel costs and a new drug diversion pilot scheme. So our hard-working NHS nurses have borne the brunt of the pandemic. And now, for the first time in its 106-year history, the Royal College of Nurses are striking because patients are dying on trolleys in corridors. Despite their contributions, nurses continue to be overworked, underpaid and undervalued, along with many other public sector workers. If this government won't give nurses the pay increase they need and deserve, then it falls on us to find ways to cut the cost of living for them and other low-paid workers. When I joined nurses at the picket lines at St Thomas's and at UCH, they told me that poor pay and poor working conditions mean nurses are being driven to leave the profession. Discounted or free public transport is their #1 ask, similar to subsidised travel for Met officers. Our amendment calls on the Mayor to deliver free travel for trainee nurses to give them the urgent helping hand they need with mounting cost of living pressures. Our amendment also includes free travel for the lowest paid GLA staff, who are the backbone of this organisation and deserve travel concessions for their hard work day in, day out. This includes our porters, cleaning staff, security team, apprentices and many more people who are crucial to keeping the GLA going. We propose introducing, for 3 financial years, new free travel for these groups. Without any assumptions about future fare rate increases, the total cost of these 2 measures are just over £10 million per year for nurses, £1.9 million per year for the lowest paid GLA staff and contractors. This part of our amendment is funded using a total of £36.75 million over 3 years from the Business Rates Reserve. An inclusive economic recovery must bring everyone with us. So I now want to turn to the issue of drug possession and the way it is viewed and dealt with by the police. In 2021 to 22, over 9,000 people were criminalised for drug possession, and 294 people died from drug use in London. Changing drug possession into an opportunity for a positive health outcome rather than an incriminating police encounter would enable people to make healthy, positive changes in their lives. This is why our amendment provides a gateway to trauma-informed support rather than a fast track into the criminal justice system. Criminalising people who use drugs does not significantly reduce harm, does not significantly reduce use, does little to reduce health harm, and is a waste of police time that could be better spent keeping communities safe. It also leaves people with a criminal record that undermines their future life chances. From Avon to the West Midlands, from Cornwall to Durham, diversion schemes across the country have already shown a reduction in reoffending, saved the police money, reduced the burden on the courts, and importantly, improved the mental and physical health and employment opportunities for the people being diverted. This amendment would fund a diversion programme designed to divert people from the criminal justice system and towards education and further support, focusing on reducing harm. Now, it's not just the Greens calling for diversion. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime have worked to support diversion projects in Kenya. The Scottish Affairs Committee at Westminster recommended the Home Office should encourage all police forces across the UK to introduce diversion schemes, and this Assembly should support diversion too. So, to sum up, an inclusive economic recovery is one where everyone in our city has access to a secure and healthy home, decent employment, affordable transport, quality healthcare, and a police service that keeps every Londoner safe. The aim of this amendment is a step towards creating that city. People are telling us what they need. Nurses are calling for free travel. Residents are asking for the dead spaces in their areas to be put to good use. They want a say in the future of their estate, and communities don't want to see their young people criminalised. It is our duty to stand up and say to them, we're willing to fight. This amendment is designed to help us put people at the heart of the City Hall budget. It's difficult for Londoners to get their voices heard. We have this chance to move beyond expressions of solidarity and provide real, concrete support for everyone working and living in London. I hope you will vote in favour of this constructive and visionary amendment to the Mayor's draft consolidated budget. I move the motion, and would also like a recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Assembly Member Berry to second the motion, please. So the amendment, rather.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will speak now to second the amendment. And I'm really, really proud to do this. It's absolutely packed full of good ideas that the Greens have championed for years. All of these are inclusive ideas that consider the needs of Londoners today and work towards building a resilient recovery. I'll be focusing on the parts that include access to secure and healthy housing, fixing our dead spaces problem, and empowering residents. So, talking about resident empowerment, this has been something that's come up from the grassroots ever since I was elected to the Assembly in 2016. I've had constituents from all over the city seeking help with major planning and development issues in their area. The resident empowerment part of our amendment is something the Assembly voted for in a budget amendment last year. We agreed it would provide a meaningful way for residents in London to access impartial advice and support, and by doing so influence planning decisions in London for the better. Residents wanting to plan their own areas better, those facing the threat of having their homes demolished, and those wanting to oppose bad planning proposals are all hampered by a system that puts power into the hands of the already powerful. This amendment therefore proposes again that a resident empowerment fund is created, initially with £500,000 taken from the business rates reserve. Further funds could be added to this in future, for example using developer contributions, and the resources landlords are already asked to provide for resident support in the ballot process. Now, it could also support more initiatives that mirror the London Housing Panel that the Assembly also voted for support for and to save last year, such as the London Climate Panel that my excellent colleague Zach Polanski has recently asked the Mayor about. Now, on housing, this amendment acts to support the most marginalised people and those suffering the worst from housing injustice. The Mayor has already acted to create new specialist homeless provision for young people, and we need more of this thinking. The Albert Kennedy Trust, an LGBTIQA plus youth homelessness charity, for example, has seen a 58% increase in the number of young people needing help in the last 3 years. Over 40% of their caseload across the country comes from London. New targeted support is needed for a whole range of young people, of women escaping domestic violence, LGBTIQA plus people, gypsies, Roma and travellers, and armed forces veterans in London. And this part of our amendment utilises funds that would otherwise sit unused in the Mayoral Development Corporation Reserve to provide £10 million in capital and revenue to specialist organisations providing targeted accommodation and support aimed at preventing homelessness. And then finally, Londoners also tell me they are acutely aware of the dead spaces in their neighbourhoods at a time when local groups need empty halls and buildings for community activities more than ever. Now is the time to empower local people, councils and charities to take these spaces over, and we propose new funding and new action from the Mayor here. While a range of work is being done as part of pandemic recovery, the focus on businesses and high streets misses the chance to think holistically about the wider range of dead spaces that councils and residents have asked me about, and also how we might use them. And there's a lack of new funding proposed from 2023 to 24 anyway in the Mayor's High Streets for All challenge. So our amendment therefore proposes to provide £150,000 per project to fund 33 dead space revival schemes in each of the London boroughs and the City of London. These measures, along with those outlined by my excellent colleague Caroline Russell, together provide the improved safety net that Londoners need now. As an Assembly, our role must be to listen and offer a helping hand to Londoners for a more equal, inclusive and resilient recovery. And I hope you will all vote in favour of this amendment.
Good. Thank you, Assembly Member Berry. Now is the opportunity